Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am so excited to be doing this video. I actually got a request to do this video, or at least to talk about something like this. Actually, the request was so packed full of good stuff that I'm actually going to make at least 3 videos out of it. This one, I'm just starting with coping with medical setbacks. Now, this is something everybody with a chronic illness, or honestly anyone in life, experiences medical setbacks where it's like you're going good, everything is fine, and then boom, you get bad news, or a drug that was really working well, suddenly it develops this terrible side effect and you can't take it anymore, and so you have to start over with another drug. We've all experienced stuff like that in our life, whether we have chronic illness or not. Some people, it's coffee. They've been drinking coffee for 20 years and it's part of their daily routine and they love it. And suddenly it gives them anxiety and headaches and they realize they can't tolerate caffeine anymore. Very common to have setbacks like that. I have 8 strategies or tips or tools that I use when coping with my medical setbacks. And yes, even being in remission, I have them sometimes. Number 1, allow yourself to fall apart. It's okay to fall apart. I honestly think it's more harmful to not fall apart because you just stay in that denial stage of grief longer. So 5 stages of grief. And if you try not to fall apart, if you try not to go into the anger and the depression part of the grief cycle, then you're actually just keeping yourself in that cycle for longer. So if you get a medical setback, don't feel like this isn't happening. I can't believe this isn't happening. It's okay to grieve it. It's okay to be really sad for a while. Don't stay there though. You don't need to stay there. Number 2 is to create good self-boundaries. Now, I'll give you some examples of my self-boundaries and some more examples of what other self-boundaries could be. One thing that I found out very early is that if I got my test results before the doctor had time to explain them to me, I would spend the next 3 days Googling and figuring out 50 ways that I was going to die with this new test result. And then what would inevitably happen is I would go to the appointment and she would say, oh, this little thing here is a little low, but I'm not too worried about it. And then it was something that I didn't Google that she's like, this is a source of concern for me. A self-boundary for me is I do not look at my test results until the doctor has a chance to sit down with me and explain them in an appointment. Sometimes she'll send me an email if like everything's on the up and up. She'll be like, all right, you're good, see ya. Another self-boundary I have with myself is if I do get medical news that is not great, I do not follow the path down. What is my future gonna look like? I don't go there. I've done that before and it was a whole lot of my little boy graduating preschool and I was in a wheelchair, or 400 pounds because I had to take so many steroids, or it didn't look good. It wasn't a good thing to think about. And so I do not do that. That is something that I really had to train myself out of. I know overthinkers, I am definitely guilty of that. It is hard to do that. However, it is absolutely necessary, and that is a self-boundary that I have with myself. Other self-boundaries you could have are, I'm not going to watch this person on YouTube. Even if it's me, it's fine. You don't have to watch me, I'm not hurt. If you have a person on YouTube that you've been watching for information, but you know, their story is going downhill and it's actually kind of bumming you out and it's making you feel like all that stuff is going to happen to you and you're so scared for them and you're so scared for you and all that stuff, cut it out. You don't have to watch it. You don't have to keep up with anything. The most important thing is that you keep yourself happy and stable as much as possible. So one thing you can do is actually sit back and look at your life and be like, okay, what habits am I participating in that are making it harder for me to cope with this setback? Like, what is actually, in the metaphysical community, they call it lowering my vibration. What is lowering your vibration? What is making you feel sad when it's really unnecessary? Another thing is shows. If you are a sucker for like the medical dramas and you're like, you know, really getting into, I don't know, Grey's Anatomy, or there's other ones, I'm sure. That's the one I like. If you are really into that kind of thing, but it makes you sad, you walk away feeling heavier and not lighter, that is another good self-boundary to have, where it's just like, I'm not gonna do that to myself. I'm going to watch things that lift me up, or I'm going to cut back on this. And another good way to test it is to cut it out for a week and see how you feel. 3 is creating good boundaries with other people. Now, this is something that's a little sticky, because if there is a negative person in your life, or a person who is really causing you stress and anxiety, especially around medical stuff, and you're the one who keeps picking up the phone and calling them, that is a self-boundary. That is not a them boundary. But if you want to have a boundary with another person, you need to discuss it with them and say, hey, when you do X, Y, and Z, I feel this way. Don't say you make me feel this way, because nobody makes you do anything. That's on you. But you can take ownership of it. Be like, when you said this to this person, I felt this way. That is a boundary I would like to have. One boundary I set with my family was to not share my medical information unless I have shared it first, or unless they've gotten permission. I grew up in a big, beautiful family with a really close church network, and they would all share things on the prayer chain and everything. And I've been out of that community for a lot of years. And so when they're still in that and they're able to just, share things and kind of mass text everybody and talk to 40 people about my medical stuff, like, it made me feel really vulnerable. And so I was able to set that boundary with my family, and my family has absolutely respected it, which is so great. But if I had never set that boundary, they might still be doing it, and I would be feeling vulnerable, and it would still be a toxic situation if I hadn't piped up and been like, this makes me feel uncomfortable. So set boundaries with other people too. Number 4 is getting into more internal stuff. It's think of a time when you felt as bad as now. It doesn't have to be physically, but emotionally. Think of a time where you were this depressed or this frustrated or sad about a medical setback, and compare it to now. If you've never felt as sad as now, congratulations, this is it. This is the worst it has gotten, and you are doing it. You are still breathing. You are still alive. You are still present for it. That is amazing, and it deserves applause. If you can think of a time that was worse than now, think about how you handled it, and think about how much it still hurts now, just the memory of that thing. More than likely, the memory will have been faded by now, and you'll remember that it hurt pretty bad back then, but it doesn't really hurt that much now. I would greatly recommend trying that thought experiment and just being like, wow, look at how far I've come. I had that experience back then, and that hurt so bad, but I bounced back from it, and I'm going to bounce back from this. It's just a matter of time. No problem, we'll figure it out. Number 5, this is something that I've actually borrowed from Stoicism. It is the phrase, and then what? Oftentimes we have this very ambiguous fear. It's just, I don't want this to happen. I hate that this is happening. And it's just kind of this cloud off in the distance of fear. What I need you to do is think of the worst case scenario that you can think of, and then say, and then what? And then think of that afterwards. Let me just follow this rabbit hole down with you. I am afraid that this diagnosis is going to make me housebound. And then what? All my friends are gonna have to come to me. And then what? I might lose some friends because they don't wanna come to me all the time. And then what? I'll have fewer friends. And then what? I'll be sad and lonely, which will make me sicker. And then what? I'll die. And then what? Everyone will be sad. And then what? I won't be in pain anymore, and they'll start to heal. And then what? They'll always have good memories of me. And then what? And you reach a point at any given scenario where everything balances out and it's okay again, even if you have to follow it years down the road. So it's like, if you're like, oh, I don't want this diagnosis, I don't want this diagnosis, I don't want this diagnosis, and you don't follow that thought to each bullet point of what you don't want, then it becomes this very dark and cloudy fear. However, if you do follow it, then it's very clear the steps that you would have to take, and then at the end, it's okay again. I mean, clearly none of us want to die. That's part of being human, is we're all afraid to die. It's just part of it. Another very important part of being human is that we all die. So nothing wrong with being afraid of dying. Nothing wrong with dying. I was so harsh and calloused. I know, Tori, God, why you gotta do that to me? That's just what helps me, honestly. Knowing that we all have to die of something. And if that is your biggest fear in life, you're not alone. That's most people's biggest fear in life. Other than public speaking, which is like weirdly number 2. I don't know why. But yeah, people are like terrified of public speaking. I digress. Number 6 is also very important, which is say your worst fears out loud. I'm scared that I am going to get really sick and my husband isn't going to love me anymore and he's going to leave me and I'm going to die alone. Now, this is a crucial second part to this assignment. Say the equal and opposite out loud as well. I am going to get sick and then I'm going to get better and then I'm going to help other people get better because I got sick. Also, my husband is going to love me and stay with me the rest of my life. And if he does leave me, I'm gonna find someone better. So I need you to do this with 3 fears. It's tough because the fears are so believable and the truths are so out of left field. Not the truths, the opposites. So it's like, I am afraid that I am going to need my left foot amputated. Say the opposite. I am so excited that I get to keep my left foot. Or, when my left foot is amputated, I am going to get an awesome pain-free prosthetic that I am so excited about. Even if you don't feel it, say the words out loud. Just practice it. It's something I do that is just very helpful for me. Number 7, find humor. You do have to reach a certain level of acceptance to be able to recognize the humor in a situation. When you do, and when you get your friends or family members on board with it, it makes everything so much lighter. So when I was pregnant with my son, I had this weird eye thing where the nerve behind one of my eyes actually became inflamed and I wasn't able to track with my other eye. It looked so dumb. And it hurt like hell. It was awful. However, it was, it was just like a weird lupus symptom that, popped up and then went away again. Talked to my rheumatologist about it and she was just like, that's weird. Let me know if it happens again. And then it didn't. So, what are you gonna do? But with that, I showed a video of it to my brother and he was like, what the heck is wrong with your eye? And it made me laugh so hard. It was so funny. And we just both had this wonderful moment together where we were just cracking up over my weird symptom that I got out of nowhere that made me look really stupid. And my brother and I, we have that foundation of love. Like if I was bawling and he was, he realized that I needed some empathy in that moment, he would have done it. However, I did not, so I was just sending it to him. And I was like, hey, look at this stupid symptom. And he was like, yeah, that's a stupid symptom. Also, you look hilarious. So it's really important to be able to find that humor. And sometimes family members are also feeling the impact of your illness for themselves because they have to grieve it for you as well. So family members are not always the best to catch on to that kind of humor. But if somebody really loves you, including your family, and you're like, hey, I'm gonna try to find as many funny things about this as possible, they'll jump on board very easily. So try to find the humor. Number 8, and probably the most important one for all of this, is to be kind to yourself. With lupus, with other chronic illnesses, there are some preliminary factors that can make it feel like it's our fault. I know with lupus, especially with myself, my diet is very important, and I suffered from bulimia for a few years in high school and college. And so there was a lot of guilt going into that, where it was just like, of course I'm bedridden now. I had bulimia earlier. Like, of course I put this much stress on my body, so of course my body is just gonna implode. That's not true though. Or, it might be, but I don't know that. So recognize what is just a fear, what is just your brain running away with itself, and what is actually truth. If you do have a situation where your illness is a direct result of something that you did, remember, you don't know what you don't know. If there was any part of you that did not have this as an intention, and I think that's all of us, then let yourself off the hook. You don't need to be on that hook. You're already on this hook. You don't need to keep yourself on any extra hooks. That's a lot of hooks. So that's another thing that you can do the equal and opposite trick with, where if you're like, oh, I can't believe I'm like this, I'm so worthless right now. Say something equal and opposite right after it. You don't have to be hard on yourself for thinking it in the first place, because that's just, you know. But I do want you to say an equal and opposite, where it's, I'm so grateful for this because it just shows how strong I am. It just shows how well I'm doing with this challenge. Give yourself all the credit, give yourself all the love, and just make sure that you are your own biggest fan. If you're not your own biggest fan, then you're probably your own biggest critic. And you don't want to live inside your body with that mean girl from high school, or that person that was always beating you down growing up, or something like that. And if you are your own biggest critic, you are living inside your same body with that person. So give yourself a break, become your own fairy godmother or your coach or whatever, and absolutely love yourself. Number 9, talk to a professional. Please talk to a professional. Medical setbacks are hard. They are probably one of the hardest things in life that we have to deal with, because it's this vessel that we come into the world in. It's our car that drives us around. It's what we need to like reach for food and stuff like that. And if there's something that is wrong with it, it can be absolutely devastating. And there are professional people out there who are trained to help you in that exact thing. Most insurances will pay for it, or at least pay a portion of it, so at least look into it and get yourself some professional help, and just someone in your back corner that's like looking out for you and making sure that you are not your own biggest critic. That is all I have to say about that for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk more about this topic, about resilience and strength, in another video. So, see you for now.